AskReddit by Stups15. To police officers, how are you feeling seeing how the situation was handled in Texas? Deleted. You firefighters are the real heroes. You often destroy property just to save people, as opposed to protecting property in spite of the lives of others. Thank you for your service. It's heroic and valuable. Not a cop, but I have a ton of active shooter training from the military. There is no training I've had that says wait for backup and make a plan in the event of an active shooter. You grab your long gun and move towards the shots and screams. Locate, close with, and destroy the enemy. If you aren't okay with this arrangement, get a new career. My city had a mass shooting where 10 people died 3 years ago. It took 6 responding officers 32 seconds to kill the active shooter. My co-worker is a relative of one of the officers who responded that night. She told us that he thinks these cops deserve to burn in hell for abandoning those children. That whole shooting really hit close to home. Besides all of the times I've been to the Oregon district, my best friend often worked and hung out there on his nights off from his full-time job. I called him as soon as I heard about it and thankfully he was home asleep. Dayton PD did such an amazing job that night. 20 seconds after the first shot they engaged the shooter and 12 seconds later he was down. It's still surreal to walk past Ned Peppers knowing what happened there. Deleted. IDK, but the police radio recordings magically vanished. Character is revealed in a crisis. As a motorway police inspector, I got 2 bullets in my left leg while making a bus hijack go unsuccessful. I was succeeded and remember no matter if a bullet shattered my heart. At that time, what matters was the countless lives of innocent people. Sorry for my basic English. You explained it perfectly. As an active police officer of 22 years, I would have died trying to prevent even one additional child from being harmed. I could not live with myself knowing that I stood outside while children were dying inside. Words cannot describe my disgust for what has happened there. My heart aches for both the deceased and their loved ones. I hope they fire everyone who did nothing and the judge tosses any criminal charges against parents. Just typing this and saying it out loud has gotten me all fired up again. Deleted. I work for a sheriff's department and have gone into a few active shooter situations. If it's true that officers were standing outside, there needs to be some jobs on the chopping block. Also, it's obvious what departments do active shooter training and which ones don't. Sounds like that whole department needs an overhaul. Ashamed of this agency and their so-called chief. If the shooter is isolated, you wait because time is on your side and negotiate. If they are actively shooting people, action must be taken. Just because the SCOTUS says there's no duty to intervene, I think most lay agencies' policy and, obviously, public opinion beg to differ. We should all be ashamed of the SCOTUS that would rule that police have no duty to intervene or to protect the public. Retired Leo, the words disbelief and disgusted hardly scratch the surface. Charge all of them with negligent homicide, involuntary manslaughter. To add to the points the others are making, imagine the effect on the children's parents. They already have the horror of their child being killed knowing that their last moments were filled with terror and pain, but that's now compounded by the thought that their child could have been saved, if it were not for the cowardice of the people they trusted to protect them. These poor souls are now broken. And this is a small town. I imagine these officers live there, the parents know their names and faces. Going to be some tense moments in the grocery aisle. And probably some houses discounted for quick sales. Deleted. The only reason the truth is being aired now is that A, there are videos and testimonies that directly contradict the cops' statements, and B, the FBI's now involved, and if you lie to them no let type exemption can will protect you. In Britain, there was an attacker with a machete on London Bridge and our unarmed police officers ran towards him with only pepper spray and batons, literally hitty sticks. In fact, one was an off-duty transport police officer with no gear at all. I can't fathom the slowness of the response in Texas. Narwhal Tusk Guy. https://www.bbc.co.uk/news/UK-50870309 closed bracket was having none of it. Deleted. I've worked trained on MCIs, including active shooter, in EMS, and done my time kicking doors in Iraq. I called it 2 days ago, before the details were clear, that we'd be hearing some damning information about the IC and local SWAT based off the fact they waited so long, and initial reports were that Border Patrol assaulted the room on their own initiative without local LEO's request. That fact they completely neglected gaining and maintaining contact, and that there were probably 50 plus officers on site that did nothing by the time BP breached is unforgivable. Deleted. My dad taught active shooter classes 4 years before he was retired, and I helped out with the exact training scenarios you are talking about. In one, I even role-played the shooter when I was about 14 years old. We had kids crying out for help in the hallways as I was shooting blanks down the hallway of my high school. It was an insane experience to go through, but we knew what we were doing could potentially save lives if the unthinkable were to happen. Looking at this response by police who in theory had this training just a few months ago, I'm not so sure. It's one thing to play out a scenario and say all the right answers in the training, and another thing entirely to put your life on the line to save children. The argument that the Blue Lives Matter folks have had the whole time in regards to defending the police is that the cops are heroes who need resources to save us in the face of tragedy. When I see a video of nearly 20 cops standing outside a slaughterhouse detaining screaming parents armed with rifles, what exactly is it that we are paying for? This incident has me rethinking a lot of things in regards to how we as a country should be viewing and funding our law enforcement. Disgusted. My department had an all cops run-in strategy ready to go. We even had an airport stairs on a pickup truck to drive to the side of the school if it was a hostage situation on the second floor. We coordinated with firefighters to have multiple cops on the platform on top of the ladder on the fire trucks, and the fire trucks would drive us up to the sides of the school and the cops would make entry through the windows. We practiced breaking down the doors, and also practiced breaking through the drywall and studs if the door was barricaded. We were told any cop who didn't go into a school shooting situation unless told by the chief otherwise would be fired. We were also told that if we kneeled on any suspect we would be fired, and the chief would recommend to the DA to charge us, and would give the evidence themselves. This was also well before BLM. When I see shitty cops clowning around I am pissed. That's why cops all over have bad names. It's because of clowns like these. Sounds like you had a good boss, glad to hear it. What they teach us is that you have to enter, even if that means by yourself. You go in and eliminate the threat. If you've got someone else there with you, cool, but you may have to go in on your own. There's a video clip trending now about the guy in Nick who took it upon himself to tackle the serial subway stabber. He sued the police department because the officers who were right next to him failed to intervene. His case was dismissed on the basis that officers are not legally liable to intervene, or something to that effect. Based on what you're saying, that doesn't seem to line up with the training cops receive. Are cops generally afraid or confused about what they are expected to do if the training says one thing and the laws are applied differently? Are cops generally hesitant to fulfill their duties because they fear litigation, or are the laws so much in their favor that they don't feel compelled to act? Just curious to hear a cop's perspective and what you think needs to change to strike the right balance. This department has now created a situation where parents will show up to a future incident armed and not likely to take direction from officers on the scene. Cue next year's story where a parent gets shot by the police in a mix-up. Deleted. How would you feel about police having to renew a license every 2 years like nurses do? Like nurses, they would have to show proof of training and continuing education. Their license would be put to licensing board for review and then be renewed. Works for nurses, doctors, anesthesiologists, barbers, massage therapists. Deleted. This is what I don't understand. How is it that not even one of those men said fuck it, I'm going in? Looking at the photo of the police in question, huge generalization to follow, and I apologize, I'm shocked that this wasn't the kind of situation that at least one of them had waiting for. The chance to go in and shoot first kind of thing. To be the hero. Even if he hadn't been able to save anyone or take down the shooter, that police officer would have been known as only that one police officer. Now, they are just all cowards. It's like Parkland, Florida all over again. Someone with a badge and gun heard shots and did absolutely nothing. Cowards. This is even worse though. Parkland was one coward. This was an entire group of cowards who sat around doing fuck all while kids were being actively murdered and bleeding out on the other side of the wall. I'm really upset. I'm so heartbroken for the families. My agency trains us to take immediate action, TP save lives and stop the threat. Our training and gear reflect that. There is no time for tactical teams. Absolutely zero chance I give less than everything. How much you want to bet that those same coward cops are the ones that puff their chests out at their family Sunday BBQs about how they protect and serve? They should all be stripped of their pensions and fired in disgrace. Disgusted. Angry. I was a cop from 2012 to 2019 and did multiple active shooter training at schools. Responded to a mass shooting at a block party and we ran in. We knew the risk when we signed up for the job. This was a nightmare scenario that they fucked up so badly. Really a cop? Those guys, or at least their commanders, are cowards. To me being a cop is a service position. I'm willing to die for anyone at any time in my city. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to die but I sure as fuck ain't waiting outside during an active shooting. And an active shooting with children. I don't understand how you just stand there knowing children are dying. Pretty fucking angry. I am retired now, but taught active shooter response for over 10 years. Uvalde ISD chief should resign and turn in his credentials and get a job digging ditches. Thank goodness BORTAC took the initiative, even if they waited and listened to Ariano for 30 minutes. Instead the chief is running for city council. Can't even make this shit up. Deleted. Cop here from New Jersey. Simply put, these cops can go fuck themselves. I feel appalled and embarrassed for the Uvalde police's response or lack thereof. What bunch of pathetic human scum would willingly neglect their oath and amp duty to serve and to protect equals the Uvalde police? Imagine if nurses and doctors refused to attend to patients with COVID for fear of contracting the disease. I'm glad our hospital teams are braver than the Uvalde's police. Now, waiting for a bullet is deadlier than COVID rebuttal. But you get the point. Imagine if the firemen at the World Trade Center didn't enter because they were scared. First responders ran into the WTC understanding the chance of anyone surviving was pretty damn low and the chance of them surviving was pretty damn low. But they thought if they could save one single life, it was all worth it. Seething. I was already pretty pissed when I found out about it, but finding out the cops went in to save their kids and they proceeded to let the shooter run around for an hour because they quote were scared they'd get shot has ticked me the fuck off. I hope every single of them is fired, but knowing Texas they won't get their just desserts. Edit. Thanks for the upvotes but I don't deserve them lol. I'm not a police officer, I'm just a dumbass who didn't see the part where Op was asking for police officers' opinions on this situation. Not a cop, then. After they saved their kids, they didn't let others in to do the same. So I'll answer this from a slightly different perspective but still very relevant. I was in the military but not law enforcement. It was a well-known thing, even taught in basic training, that raising your right hand and joining was essentially signing a blank check made payable up to and including your life. Cops need to have that same attitude. They sure scream that they put their lives on the line every day for their community. God forbid they do it once in a while. So, my uncle is a policeman, and he said that the second they heard a shoot from the inside they were obligated to go in. Edit. So, obligation doesn't instantly mean they were by law required to do so. More of a moral obligation. Sorry for that confusion. Current police officer. Waiting outside while an active shooter goes against what we're trained to do here. The problem comes when you have these small police departments or sheriff's offices that have few officers and barely do any training. I just know that regardless of training or not, if you're not willing to go into an active shooter situation and end the threat, then you need to turn in your badge. If it's true that these officers waited while they heard the shooting, then they actually deserve to be prosecuted and not allowed to work law enforcement anywhere in this country. For reference, here we are trained to go in to stop an active shooter as a single responding officer or as a two-man team. You don't sit around and wait for backup. I don't know if most other agencies do the same. To top it off, they had active shooter drills with a role-playing gunman at this very school just weeks prior, and still did nothing when the time came. Late to the thread, so nobody will see this, but to police, if you are upset by this, your voice would be the loudest. It's time to start calling this shit out and working to reform your own career and your own co-workers. Former active duty. If I hear shots in a school, I'm going in with intent to neutralize the shooter. They can fire me afterwards. Calling that situation handled is a bit generous. Fucking right. They did nothing. Absolutely unsurprised 90% of people I've worked with are cowards that only do their job in force of numbers or against people who can't take them one-on-one. The entire police training and continued training is fear-based. Shoot first if it looks like a threat so you can go home. Be cautious so you can go home. Be afraid of this so you can go home. Everything as this is what's supposed to happen, but whatever it takes to go home at the end of shift. It's created a culture of scared individuals whose only interests are themselves and the guy wearing the same uniform as them, regardless of doing the job or public service, and that only goes a